By the end of this video, you're going to know the difference between sublimation and HTV. We're going to talk about the similarities, how you can incorporate both of these with Cricut, and so much more. Be sure to stick around till the end of the video to learn how you can incorporate sublimation in with your Cricut crafts, and you can actually use both of these together. We'll get into all of that and so much more in today's video. Leave a comment down below and let me know, have you considered trying sublimation? Have you heard of it or even thought about it? Before we start, let's get into what these actually even are. So HTV, or heat transfer vinyl, iron-on vinyl, is a vinyl that is applied with heat. So a heat press, an iron, Cricut Easy Press, and you go ahead and you cut this out on your Cricut or your Silhouette, your die cutting machine. You cut out a little design or decal. You're going to put it on your shirt and use your press or your iron to heat it up. The heat from the press activates the adhesive and then it sticks onto the garment that you're pressing. So essentially that's what heat transfer vinyl is in a nutshell, and we'll get more into it in a little bit here. Sublimation is a type of printing. So sublimation prints get printed out on a special printer, a sublimation printer. You can also convert another printer and check out this video to learn how to do that, save money with sublimation. You use special sublimation ink, so not regular printer ink, and sublimation paper, which is what I'm holding right here for reference. What it does is it actually transfers into the garment. Now we'll get into why this is so different than HTV in a minute here, but you can kind of see the difference. This one is cut out. It's kind of like a sticker that you heat up and then add onto something, like a sticker that you put on with heat. And then this one is something that you put ink on, and the ink gets transferred into the garment with the heat. So you can kind of see the difference. One goes on top, one goes quite literally inside the fibers of the fabric. Now we're going to talk about this one. So a couple things to note with this is because it is overlaid on top of the garment, and for this tutorial we're talking more about shirts, but you can also do sublimation on things like mugs. You can do Cricut infusible ink, which is kind of similar to heat transfer vinyl and sublimation. It's kind of like if sublimation and HTV had a kid, and then their little kid would be infusible ink. But you could do things like mugs and all that fun stuff with it. Now we're talking more about shirts for this video. So with heat transfer vinyl, or HTV, it is something that gets overlaid on top of the fabric. Like I said, kind of like a sticker. So over time, it can peel up, it can crack, and it can melt. And that happens a lot of times with heat. If it gets put in the washing machine on a hot cycle, you want to try to wash it on cold. If it gets put in the dryer, it's recommended to hang dry it. Honestly, you really want to hang dry it. If you have to tumble dry it, it can work, but the longevity of your vinyl decal is not going to last that long. So definitely look into it, and it's also going to matter how you press it. So if you're using an iron compared to an industrial heat press, you're going to get a different look. And now that can be argued. Maybe you can get an amazing look with an iron, but the longevity of it is really going to make a difference in the quality. For HTV, you're going to use a software of Cricut Design Space, which would be the same that you would use with your Cricut and permanent adhesive vinyl. And you can go ahead and create your design, send it to your Cricut, and then load your vinyl, and it'll cut out the decal for you. You weed it, you overlay it on your shirt, and you're ready to press it. Now, the difference is going to be with the sublimation, which we'll talk about in a little bit here, but let's finish talking about HTV first. The blanks for HTV, you're not really limited on. You can use 100% cotton, you can use polyester, spandex, all of those things, because it's overlaid on top. So it doesn't really matter. As long as it can stick on there, you're good. And the heat is going to activate that adhesive. Sometimes with certain materials, you have to apply more pressure, more heat, or for a longer time. It's really going to depend. To learn more about the time and temp settings, refer to the Cricut's heat guide online. It will get you to put in the type of heat transfer vinyl you're using, the fabric you're using, and then tell you the amount of time and the temperature that you should use for that to work successfully. Now let's talk about the big guy. Like I mentioned before, with sublimation, the sublimation print is actually going to transfer the ink into the fibers of that polyester shirt. And yes, I said polyester. So what you want is the highest count of polyester you can find. There's kind of a rule of thumb. I would say most crafters stick to about 65% polyester or more. And I know some of you are gonna hop in the comments and say, but Shay, I've sublimated on 100% cotton before, or I've sublimated on 50% cotton, and that's amazing. But to get the most vibrant and long-lasting quality of a sublimation print, you do want to get the highest amount of polyester you possibly can in your fabric. And that's going to look different for everybody, because if you're going to do 100% cotton, it's going to come out very dull. It's also going to wash out in the washing machine very easily. So you definitely want to make sure you're looking into polyester, because what it does is, like I said, it literally transfers into the fibers of the polyester fabric. So You want to make sure you're using polyester when you can. You can also use sublimation to make things like mugs, keychains, tons of options, lanyards, mouse pads, and all of them have a special coating on top of it specifically for sublimation. It's the same as infusible ink. So sublimation blanks work for infusible ink as well, the Cricut infusible ink, and all of those things. So you can kind of think of it similar in that way. With sublimation, it is recommended to use an actual heat press and not an iron because you do want an even press so that the ink can properly transfer all the way through. That way you don't have any patches on the edges that are lighter or darker when you want it all to be uniform. You can also use Cricut Design Space to create your designs. I create all of my photo mugs that I make on Cricut Design Space with the Cricut Design Space mug wrap template that they have, and check out my other videos on my channel to learn how to use that template and where to get it because it is free. I don't pay for the Cricut Access membership and I still am able to use that. So it's really helpful if you're doing infusible ink mugs or sublimation mugs. It's really great, and like I said, it's free, so why not do that? If I can link it and find it, I'll link it down below so it's just easy for you to click on. As I mentioned, you can make mugs and other things as well. Just make sure that you look up sublimation blanks on Amazon or the craft shop, wherever you're going, to allow for the sublimation ink to properly transfer into that and kind of like infuse into the material. With sublimation, it is also recommended that you do hang dry and wash inside out. It just makes it so it lasts even longer, but it's essentially permanent if you're using the proper blanks. You can put your mug in the dishwasher, you can put your shirt in the washing machine. If you do want to throw it in the dryer, just try to tumble dry on low if you can, but honestly, it's permanent if you do it right. So like I just mentioned, if you follow those steps, you should be good to go. And you're not limited on colors. With HTV, you're kind of limited to how many colors you can layer. It can start melting it and make a bit of a mess. And also some of those really intricate designs where you have to add all these little dots or patterns can be kind of tricky with layering HTV. Whereas when you're printing it out on your printer, think of it as like a regular color printer. It just has sublimation ink in it. So it's going to come out with these beautiful, stunning, multicolored designs that you can do. You can do, I don't know, Mickey Mouse or all of those Disney characters and princesses for personal use, but you can do that over here, whereas with HTV, it's a lot harder to do all of those layers. You can definitely do it depending on the design. Some of them you absolutely could not, but it kind of makes a mess if you do a lot of layers. I would say there's definitely a maximum amount of layers you could do with heat transfer vinyl of different colors, whereas sublimation, it all just gets printed with the ink, it's there and it's vibrant. Do take into account when you do print something out on your sublimation printer, when it comes out of the printer, it looks dull. You might think, why is it not very vibrant? It literally looks dull, as if the printer's out of ink. And it's supposed to do that. It's meant to do that, so don't be afraid. Once you go in and transfer it, you add the heat, your heat press, your mug press, whatever you're making. Once it's fully done its time, you will see that the color comes out vibrant and it is beautiful. So don't be alarmed if it comes out dull. There is a little bit of a cost to get started with sublimation. You need to factor in the cost for a sublimation printer, or to save money, you can convert a regular inkjet printer like an Epson EcoTank, and not just any inkjet printer will work. It has to be specific ones. So if you were to check out this video here to learn about that, I will also leave it linked down below, and you can check out my sublimation playlist over on my YouTube channel to learn more about how to do sublimation on a budget, because your girl did not have the money to fork out to do this fancy setup, but the setup that I did works amazingly, and I've been able to sell my sublimation products with no issues. So I highly recommend you check it out. It really just ups the quality of my items and products that I'm selling. I highly recommend it. And the printer itself with the ink and everything, the paper I had to get, all that stuff cost about $500 to $600, which I understand. Not everyone has the money to just drop on something like that, and it took me about 6 years to be able to save up to do that. So I 100% get it, but if you are wanting to do something like that and you have the money, it's still way cheaper to do it the way that I did it than going ahead and buying a full-on sublimation printer. You are limited on sizing and things like that, but that's something to talk about in another video. So there you have it. Do you understand the difference now between HTV and sublimation? They are quite different, but they also do similar things, and they do a lot of similarities. Which one do you prefer? Have you considered doing sublimation? Or are you more of an HTV kind of crafter? I honestly would say my favorite Cricut crafts to make are with HTV, but recently, since I've been doing sublimation, I'm obsessed and I can't stop. Make sure you're subscribed for more sublimation and Cricut tips, tutorials, and business ideas, and I will see you on the next one. Happy crafting and bye for now.